noticing her presence. But it wasn't the loss of fame that bothered her. It was the loss of the music. The fame was simply a perk that came with making something that people connected with, of performing on a stage, guitar in hand, feeding on the crowd's energy. She sifted through the scraps of ideas littered through the notebook. She'd hoped maybe coming to the Rainbow, where so many greats had hung out, would inspire her. As if sitting in a sticky vinyl booth would somehow miraculously move her to finally write a new song. Lips pursed together, she shook her head again. She had nothing. Her brain spun emptily, filled with nothing but frustration and disappointment and fear. Shoving the notebook aside, she scrolled through a series of texts from Jeremy Nichols, her manager, and then opened her phone's web browser and navigated to a video of her disgrace at 30,000 feet. Like pressing on a bruise, she pressed play. She'd already watched it several times. She couldn't seem to stop watching it, and she couldn't stop herself from cringing every time she did. She'd been trying to make herself numb so that she wouldn't hurt so much. And God, she hurt. Several months ago, she'd started casually dating bodyguard Zach DeLuca, and much to her surprise, she'd fallen fast and hard for him. For the first time in years, she'd wanted something more than casual. But Zach hadn't, and even though he hadn't meant to, he'd broken her heart. So, to numb the pain of walking away from Zach, she'd joined the Mile High Club with a cute guy she'd met earlier in the airport lounge. They'd flirted, had coffee, and gone their separate ways. When she'd boarded the plane and found her first-class seat, she'd been pleasantly surprised to discover that cute coffee guy was right across the aisle from her. The flirting had resumed, and she'd moved over to the empty seat beside him. One thing had led to another, and after about 45 minutes, they'd wound up in the bathroom together. As soon as they'd emerged, they'd been confronted by the flight attendant who knew exactly what they'd done and threatened to have them arrested when the plane landed. When Taylor had started to apologize, the woman had turned on her, calling her a dirty slut. Livid, and with no patience for bullshit double standards, Taylor had had a few choice words for the woman. The air marshal had come over to see what the commotion was about, and the flight attendant had called Taylor a white trash whore. So she'd slapped the flight attendant across the face, and the confrontation had devolved into flailing limbs and hair pulling. The air marshal had had to separate them, and she'd accidentally caught him in the throat with her elbow. Not her finest moment. She'd been escorted off the plane, and the video of the whole thing had gone viral almost immediately. She shook her head and closed the video. Her pulse throbbed ominously in her temples, warning her of an oncoming headache. Everything was falling apart, and hell if she knew how to fix it. A gawky guy with a slim build approached her table, and as his eyes met Taylor's through his thick, horn-rimmed glasses, a chill crept over her skin. His dark brown hair was long on top and shaved close on the sides, his plain white t-shirt and jeans boring but clean. A surge of something weird, something cold, pushed up through her chest, and she forced herself to take a breath. He was probably just a fan looking for a picture. She should be grateful she still had fans, and yet something about this guy set her on edge. "Hi, Taylor Ross?" His voice was higher than she'd expected. "Yeah, hi," she said, wanting to get this interaction over with. "Can I, get a picture?" His eyes darted around the bar, oddly bright, and the hairs on the back of her neck prickled. He pushed his glasses back up his nose and made an awkward, fluttering gesture with his hand before shoving it in his pocket. She glanced around, trying to figure out what he was looking at. She plastered a smile on her face that she hoped didn't look as fake as it felt. Sure. Pressing her palms against the table, she stood from her booth. He slipped his arm around her, and another chill shivered down her spine, making her shrink away from him a little. Raising his phone in front of them, he took the picture. Relieved, she started to move away from him, but his arm tightened around her. He smiled shyly. "One more." She held still for the picture and didn't smile this time. As soon as he'd clicked the button, she pulled away. He let her this time, his fingers trailing over her waist and leaving her feeling as though she'd been slimed. "You shouldn't be here by yourself. I can keep you company." "No, thanks." She turned away and moved to slip back into the booth when he tapped her on her shoulder. She spun, ready to tell him to fuck off, but froze at the look on his face, his eyes blazing, his lips curled into a thin sneer. When he spoke, his voice was quiet and determined. "But I want to. You have to let me." Anger melted her fear, and she scoffed out an impatient laugh. "I don't have to let you do But the rest of her words died as he grabbed her, curling.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.